Welcome everyone to Cuyamaca College's College Hour for Chaldeans past and present, presented by Father Michael Bazzi, who is instructor at Cuyamaca College for the past 32 years. The presentation will discuss Chaldeans in the past and present, one Chaldean nation, Chaldeans in the Bible, Chaldean Empire, Chaldean Church, and Chaldeans in the United States and San Diego. The Reverend Father Michael J. Bazzi has been the pastor of St. Peter's Chaldean Catholic Church in El Cajon, San Diego since 1985. Father Michael has also served as a professor of the modern and classical Aramaic at Cuyamaca College in El Cajon for 32 years. Father Michael is a distinguished Bible authority, author, teacher, linguistic, translator, and pastoral counselor. Born in Chaldean, Iraq, a suburb in Nineveh, he studied and received a scholarship. I apologize. He graduated seminary at St. Peter's College, Baghdad, and was ordained into the priesthood in that same year, 1964. He served 8 years in Chaldean as an assisting priest, speaking his native language of Aramaic, as well as Arabic. He then studied and received a scholarship to the Vatican in Rome, where he earned a master's degree in pastoral theology. While in Italy, he gained a broad knowledge of the Italian and French languages. He arrived to the USA in 1974. He was teaching for 5 years in Waukesha, Wisconsin, the scripture. He established 2 churches in Detroit, and he came to California and worked in Los Angeles, and then he moved to San Diego, where he is still here. Father Michael published 12 books, and I will now give you Father Michael. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Shlama Amchon. Peace be with you all. Greetings from Father Michael Bazzi, a retired Chaldean Catholic priest in El Cajon, California. For 1 hour, I will share with you about my Chaldean nationality. Since 1982, I am an American citizen and proud of it. America encourages the immigrants to share the tradition of their heritage. That's why, what am I going to do for you now? I will take you back to Middle East 5,000 years in history. I will give you a short information about the Chaldean past and present. We'll cover 6 points: Chaldeans, Chaldean Emperor, especially Chaldean Church, Chaldeans in the world, Chaldean United States, and especially also Chaldean in San Diego. And now we will start with the Bible. Can you picture something? I want you to know that in the Bible, there are 97 times mentioned the word Chaldean, and 111 times mention the great Nebuchadnezzar, and then Ur of Chaldea 4 times. There is no prophet in the Bible but to speak about the Chaldeans something. And I'm going to share out of all those quotations, only 2 of them. Which are these 2? I will tell you now from 7th and 6th century BC. Quotation number 1 is from Jeremiah, chapter 51. In description of Babylon of the Chaldean, he said, Babylon is a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunk. How beautiful. He puts it in the Lord's hand. That's Babylon. Then something is so amazing, you will not believe what you are going to hear from me. What God said in the mouth of the prophet Habakkuk, chapter 1. The quotation starts, thus said the Lord. Here we are. It is not me, it's not the prophet, it's the Lord. He's talking about Chaldeans. So listen, everybody. The Lord God said, I am raising up Chaldeans, the people that march the breadth of land. Swifter than leopards are their horses, keener than wolves at evening. Their horse prance, their horsemen come from afar. They fly like the eagle, hastening to devour. Each comes from the rapine. Their combined consent is that of storm wind that heaps up captives like sand. They scoff, make fun at kings, and princes are their laughing stock. They laugh at any fortress, they heap up a ramp and conquer it. Then they veer like the wind and they are gone. Would you believe what I read? That's what the Lord said about Chaldeans, which we don't know. We should be proud to hear this. And now we are going to start our course, which is, who are the Chaldeans? We talk about Chaldeans around us, and most of your picture I can see here, you are Chaldeans around, you are listening. So, but also our good friends who are not Chaldeans, we love you. And I want you to listen all to have information. The San Diego, California is a Christian Catholic community that immigrated from the great country of Mesopotamia, the land between Tigris and Euphrates, Bain al-Nahrain, modern day Iraq. It is part of Fertile Crescent, which is called the cradle of civilization. This place gave birth to the political, judicial, religious, and military systems that steered earlier societies on a course that would eventually lead to our modern world, intricate system of nation, states, and countries. And back to the Bible, the book of Genesis places the Garden of Eden, first pages of the Bible, in Mesopotamia, where the great hanging garden of Babylon was chosen as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Mesopotamia is where the first form of writing was created and used. It is the place where the wheel were invented. I will tell you a story. I was in Egypt. I took people from San Diego to visit Egypt trip. And then while we were in the bus, I asked the guide, tell the people in my bus, Chaldeans, who invented the wheel, and was it Egyptian? He said, no. Egyptian took the use of the wheel from Abraham. And here we are. Abraham is the Chaldean who immigrated from Ur of Chaldea in 1900 BC. So that was from the mouth of Egyptian person. So, and Mesopotamia is the first known law code, was established by the famous king of Babylon, Hammurabi. I have all the codes here. Is the most famous. I have them all here in my hand, all of them in English. Ancient Mesopotamia gave the world the basic principle of mathematics, the 60-minute hours, the 360-degree circle, astronomy and astrology. One of the writers of the books, she called me. She said, I have your book, Chaldean Present and Past, And could you send it to me? I did. And then she wrote a book they called Memorization in Chaldean with Chaldeans, a big book. Wrote it that the Chaldeans are very famous in memorization and astronomy. Lastly, it is where the Aramaic, our today's spoken language with its Chaldean dialect, Aramaic, the language of Christ, and the New Testament flourished and became the lingua franca of the Middle East in the 6th and 7th century period of Chaldean Empire. By the way, when we say Aramaic, Aramaic has a free dialect today. There is Chaldean dialect, and there is Assyrian dialect and Syrian dialect. When the Pope visited Iraq, they said 80% of Christians are Chaldeans and 10% Syrians, 5% Assyrian, and other 5 the rest. So here we are, 80% of the Christians whom they speak Aramaic, their dialect is Chaldean, while the Assyrian, it is Aramaic dialect Assyrian, and the Syrian dialect Syrian. Even nowadays, so sad, all in Iraq, a government is speaking about Syrian culture, Syrian language, Syrian, no more Chaldean. They removed 1972 by some politicians, Syrian politicians interfere in government, and the government changes from Chaldean language to Syrian language. Sad. And now, archaeology reveals that around 3500 BC, the world's first culture of cities arose in ancient Mesopotamia. In it, they were cities with names such as Ur of Chaldeans, Erido, and Uruk. And some, they speak about Uruk, from which the name Iraq may have been derived. City-state joined into the kingdom, and the most powerful rulers whose territorial aggressions expanded their domain into the first empire in the world. So listen, the great empire of Sargon of Akkad, whose armies pushed into Lebanon, Anatolia, Turkey, and Persia around 2300 BC. Can you picture that? That's Mesopotamia. Writing appeared in Mesopotamia about 3500 BC. In the early days, Mesopotamia writing took the form of abstract symbol known as cuneiform. And I have the most beautiful book here about all what was written in cuneiform. And I can show it to you little. Here you are. This is the cuneiform. And can you see how it was written over the rocks? That's a cuneiform. Okay. This opened the door to written history and other scholarship, including the map of the world and the Epic of Gilgamesh. Astrology began in the 3rd millennium BC in Ur of Chaldeans, though the earliest evidence of it is only clay tablets from 2nd millennium BC in Babylon. The Mesopotamian Zakurat stepped on clay bricks tablet such as the Tower of Babel, where platforms were built to observe the stars and cast horoscope. Ancient Mesopotamia cosmology is still the basic of present-day astronomy. I want you to know there was a teacher in Hamul here in El Cajon, California. Hamul, this teacher used to bring every year all the high school science. He used to teach science there. And guess what? He used to bring a student to me to give them talk. 10 years ago, he stopped to talk about the beginners of the science of astrology. And he was so happy to bring those students to know who are the Chaldeans. During the Hellenistic period, 4th to the 1st century BC, the Greek combined the Babylonian and Egyptian astrology with their own mathematics and astrology, thereby forming the system presently used in the West. Ur of Chaldeans, the most famous and the oldest town in Mesopotamia and the world, is the traditional birthplace of Abraham. Abraham, the father of three nations in the delta of Tigris and Euphrates rivers. According to the book of Genesis, Abraham is the father of the three major monotheistic religions, which comprise on 1/3 of today's world population, which are Christians, Jewish, and Muslims. We read the following chapter 11 in the book of Genesis. Can you picture? Any quotation I'm doing is from the Bible. This is the record of Terah. Terah became the father of Abraham. Genesis chapter 11. Nahor and Haran died before his father Terah in his native land, the Ur of the Chaldeans. And Terah took his own son Abraham, his daughter-in-law Sarah, and brought them out of the Ur of Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. That's the Bible. I'll tell you the story. I was in Oak Park, Michigan, a pastor. I established the Mor'edde church there. And one of those days, there was fight in the yard of the church around there between some Jewish young people and Chaldeans. Then when I present there myself, I said, guys, come here. You are Chaldeans? He said, yes. Who is Jewish here? Two of them, they said, we are Jewish. You are fighting? They said, yes, we are. I said, you are wrong. They said, why? Then I brought the Bible for them. I opened it in the book of Genesis, chapter 11, how Abraham, the father of the Jews, is Chaldean. Guys, I said, what's wrong with you? You are cousins. If your great father is Chaldean and here are Chaldeans, who are you? You are cousins. You should not fight. Okay, and Genesis chapter 12, we read the Lord God called Abraham saying, go forth from your father's kinfolk and from your father's house to the land I will show you. In Genesis chapter 15, the Lord said to Abraham, I am the Lord who brought you from Ur of Chaldeans to give you this land. And St. Matthew's gospel gives us the family record of Jesus Christ. He was descendant of Abraham, citizen of Ur of Chaldeans. So Jesus, by his body, is descendant of Abraham, Abraham the Chaldean. So picture that. Second point in our discussion today is the Chaldean Empire, how they established those Chaldeans, huge empire. Around the 9th century BC, history mentioned a country called Chaldea with inhabitants called Chaldeans. This reference came from the reign of the Assyrian king 850 Shalmaneser III. Chaldea as a country was mentioned in the annals of Assyrian king Ashurbanipal II, 884 before Christ. This time, the geographical area was called Sea Land. I want all of you to correct something. Today, there is a place in the very south, it's called Persian Gulf. They are wrong. It is not Persian Gulf. It's the Sea of Chaldea. And I'm quoting for you from the Ashurbanipal II. And even if you open, all of you, please take this note. Open Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica, and you will see the Sea of Chaldea. When the Arab came, conquered, they changed it to Arabic Gulf. And then when the Persian came, they changed it to Persian Gulf, and today is Persian Gulf. Sad to say, is the Sea of Chaldea. They are wrong. These Chaldeans lived among the swamps and lakes along the lower courses of the Tigris and Euphrates River, south of Mesopotamia. Their organization was tribal, and each Chaldean Betha, house, family, clan, was under the leadership of Melka, king. Chaldean tribes lived in an area of flourishing date palms. They kept large herds of horses and cattle. They were merchant in control of southern trade routes along which traveled such exotic, luxurious as ebony, ivory, elephant hides, and gold. The Chaldeans established a number of states which resisted extinction and assimilation during the Assyrian conquer of the 8th, 7th century BC. Little is known of the first Chaldean king of Babylon, Eriba Marduk. And here we are. Eriba Marduk is as the true founder of the Chaldean dynasty. He was succeeded by Nabu-Nasser the first, 747 BC. At this time, we enter a new era in the history of Babylon. Henceforth, precise record of historical events were systematically kept. The Chronicles were an account of the succession of the kings of Babylon. Chronicles, by the way, let me share with you. In 1850 AD, there was a discovery, and some archaeologists, they discovered those chronicles in the library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh. And it was amazing how they saw all those names of the Chaldean kings. Those chronicles contain many accounts of astronomical observation. This is why the Nebuchadnezzar era is recognized as a turning point in the history of science. In fact, the very term Chaldean became synonymous with astronomer. So anytime you say astronomer, that means Chaldean. After the death of Nebuchadnezzar, a rebellion occurred in Babylon, which led to the murder of the son and the take over the Assyrian army. Following the death of the Assyrian king Shalmaneser, Chaldean Melka, the ruler of the family of Beth Yakin, came to power in Babylon. And here you can read Isaiah chapter 39. Merduk Baladan seized the Babylonian throne in 721 BC and held until 710 BC. He was Chaldean. By the end of the first half of the 7th century BC, a mysterious ruler by the name of Caldalano, 449, appeared as a king of Babylon. Throughout all this period, the Chaldeans remained strong, creating a threat to Assyrian power, which was nearing to the point of collapse. Chaldean Melka named Nabopolassar seized the throne of Babylon. He established a wealthy and political stable Chaldean empire, which for the next 80 years was the principal power in Western Asia. And now we are in the very important point, a short talk about Chaldean kings, 5 of them. And I want you, all of you, to remember the date, 625 BC through 605 BC. And those Chaldean kings, they finished by 539 BC when Chaldea fell to Persians. During the time of Ashurbanipal, king of Assyria, 668, Chaldean named Nabopolassar founded the 31st Babylonian dynasty from the town of Uruk. The first Chaldean king, the other 4 kings succeeded him. And guess what? The crowned prince Nebuchadnezzar I attacked in the spring of 605, while casualties were heavy on both sides. and the Egyptian forces were decisively defeated. Their troops bolted in disorder, pursued through Syria by the Chaldean army. Nabopolassar I died in Babylon on September 605. News of his father's death reached Nebuchadnezzar II. This soldier was in Egypt, conquering Egypt. But guess what? When he heard his dad died, can you picture the history spoke about 4 days came running with his horse. From where? Border of Egypt all the way to Babylon to be in charge of the death of his father. The second king, Nebuchadnezzar II, 605-562, was to become the most famous king of the new Babylonian Empire. He continued the extensive building project of his father by the year 605 BC. He had gained control of all Syria and Palestine. And by the way, a short time ago, we passed a very important point that these Chaldeans, with the Medians' help, they destroy Nineveh 612 BC. Nebuchadnezzar II is so famous in the scripture. Most of the prophets spoke about him. In 605, he went to Judea, Palestine, and 601, he invaded Egypt and then returned to Babylon. Following his victory in northern Arabia in the winter of 598 BC, his army came to Jerusalem. 597, the city fell to him, and its king, Joachim, was deported to Babylon with his court. And many of the leading residents of the town, Jerusalem itself, was destroyed following a bitter siege for 10 years, 589 to 578. The destruction of Jerusalem is recorded in Bible, second book of Kings. The temple of Jerusalem was looted. 10,000 captives were taken. The nobles, the craftsmen, and the royal household were deported to Babylon. Something very beautiful, it says in Jeremiah chapter 25, he said, Nebuchadnezzar came from success came from God. Can you picture that? Instead of blaming a king who's destroying Israel, Jeremiah said, God sent him to punish you because you are away from God. You went after idols. And the prophet mentioned 3 deportation. The Jeremiah 3, chapter 32. We know about 1 deportation, which is the exile, Babylonian exile 587. While Jeremiah said, no, there are 3 deportations by Nebuchadnezzar II. One of them is 598 BC. He deported 3,000. 587 BC, he deported 900. And third time, 582, deported 800. Bringing the total of deported people to 4,610. I wanted to picture this. Nebuchadnezzar went from Babylon all the way to Israel and took all those people, 4,000 and some, all slaves to Babylon. Can you picture the distance? The distance is 950 miles long. Can you picture that? This man was so courageous and so unbelievable, took all those people 950 miles long, all the way to bring them where? To Babylon. The prophet Ezekiel described Nebuchadnezzar as a casting lot at Riblah, with God himself directing the lot to Jerusalem. Picture that. A prophet saying, What Nebuchadnezzar did to Jerusalem was blessing from God. Nebuchadnezzar the second, his campaign against Egypt, 569, was very successful. Pharaoh Nofra was defeated and dethroned, and from 569 to 536, Chaldeans were in Babylon army were occupying Egypt. Never happened in the history. Chaldeans did it. They conquered Egypt and they stayed there from, like I said, 569 to 536. Nebuchadnezzar II conquered Lebanon, where he had an stripe relief set up to Wadi Bursa, not far from the river Al-Kalb. This relief shows Nebuchadnezzar fighting a lion. And anybody who went to Beirut, if you go to Jaifa, you will see the image, the statue of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar as the second, as the builder of the great and magnificent city of Babylon, with its rose-colored walls, wide procession streets, never mentioned, I am sharing with you something, never mentioned to any king, to any place, like what he did in Babylon. Unbelievable. He said, procession streets, blue gaze bricks, adorned with the red dragons, lions, and wild bulls. He built a great defensive wall north of the city, which ran from seaport to Apis. This famous Median wall, this wall designed to keep out barbarian. Picture this, what I'm reading. The wall was 100 feet. Can you picture that? 100 feet wall around Babylon. Not far from the temple, Nebuchadnezzar II built the hanging garden of Babylon, an artificial hill, said he was built for the love of his wife, Amethys. Not only Nebuchadnezzar restored the city of Babylon, making it one of the wonders of the world, but also dug canals, built lakes, and a great reservoir surrounding the city for a new building. Along with beautifying the royal residency, he finished the Tower of the Seven Planners of Borsippa. That much we can talk, and this is very little. If we read in details, will be more about Nebuchadnezzar II. He died, this great Chaldean empire, 562 BC. And here we are. He, after having built a Chaldean empire which extended from the Mediterranean Sea to Sea of Chaldea, the Persian Gulf, he was succeeded by a third king, Awil-Marduk. Not much is important about him. Then the fourth king, 559. The second king came 562. The third king, 559. And his name was Neri-Glosser. And the fifth king and the last of the Chaldean Empire, 555 to 539, his name is Nabonidus. He was a bad person. Nabonidus was the last king of independent Babylon. Due to the conflict with the priest in Babylon, Nabonidus moved his residency to northern Arabia. Can you picture? The king of Babylon with all cities again under his control. He left Babylon and he went to have fun in Al-Aqaba, Arabic Tima, to have fun there. At the age of 70, returned to Babylon, but his career was short-living. The priest of Marduk in Babylon sides with the Persian leader Cyrus Malik Khorsh, with whom they enjoyed better relations. Cyrus attacked Babylon in the 539 BC. He defeated Nabonidus and entered the city of Babylon. Why? Because all the people of Babylon, they were against Nabonidus, the Chaldean king. He was not their king, good one. This event marked the end of the last native ruling dynasty in Babylon. The fall of Nineveh, 612, and the fall of Babylon, 539, marked the decline on Mesopotamian civilization, the end of the last native ruling dynasty in Mesopotamia. So after the death of the last king, Chaldean, no more people from Iraq control themselves. We had invaders, the Greeks, the Persian, Arabs, and this and that all came to conquer Iraq until 1958. Iraq became a republic. That much we could say for 40 minutes, for 20 minutes about the introduction. And now we come to the Chaldean church. Jesus Christ, before his ascension, قبل صعوده, sent his followers asking them, saying, go into the whole world and proclaim the gospel to every creature. The Apostle Thomas was the first one to evangelize in his travel through Mesopotamia, Persia, and Media to India. He was followed by, in Mesopotamia, Mar Edde of the 70 disciples and Mar Mari. So you Chaldeans, if you are hearing me, if somebody asks you who brought Christianity to you, you tell them St. Thomas, Mar Edde, and Mar Mari. Since the first century AD, Christianity has flourished in Mesopotamia among the descendant of the two great ancient nations of Chaldea and Assyria. Once they were baptized, these people, both nations preferred the name Christian. So they forget about their old name, to their old nation name. This church, which was comprised of these two nations, was simply called the Church of East, عيتد مذنحة, كنيسة المشرق. The church in Mesopotamia prospered and expanded into the whole of Mesopotamia, Persia, Arabia, steppe of Mongolia in Asia, Malabar, coast of India, and even into China. Picture that. During the first 5 centuries AD, the Chaldean and Assyrian Church of East, was in communion with the Roman Catholic Church. A school for Christian learning was even established in Edessa, which is Orpha today. This school reached its highest glory under Mar Ephraim, 363. However, the Church of the East separated from Rome around 493 AD. Sad to say, they are not anymore Catholics. When Nasibin became since then, the new intellectual center of Mesopotamia by imperial era. In the 5th century, the Church of East spread across Mesopotamia. We spoke about that. When the Arabs in the 6th century and 7th century conquered, what happened was 637, they came to Baghdad, and no more the Iranians empire vanished from history. At the time of Arabs, in 7th century AD, about 1/2 of the population of what is now Iraq and a great part of Iran was Christian. The 781 stele of Singanfu, the capital of Tang dynasty, record that a group of missionaries from the Church of East, guided by the monk Alopain, had reached China 653 AD. So here we are, Chaldeans, monks, they went from to past all those world, and they went to China. And guess what? I'll tell you something. 1995 AD, I went to Beijing, and I had with me documents. I showed them in the National Library. They could not believe it what they saw. More than 100 pages about Chaldeans and especially more than 11,000 churches they were. In Mongolia, we established. And so even they gave me the copy of those papers. When I brought them here to San Diego and showed them to some professors, they said this language is very old, from the 7th century AD. We cannot read it. And so here we are, Chaldeans in China. And very soon you are going to hear that we had one of the patriarchs from China. Can you believe that? Let's read. Monks, Rabbanan, sent by the patriarch Timothy I along the Silk Board, spread the gospel together with their culture and liturgy among people of Persia, Azerbaijan, Afghanistan, Turkey, Mongolia, China, and India. 1994, I went to India, Malayapur, southwest of India, and there I found out there are 3 million those Malayapur people, and all of them are Christians, and they know very well who brought the Christianity to them, St. Thomas, and then later the Chaldeans. And guess what? You cannot believe it. Till today, when they are having translation of the Chaldean mass to their language, Malayan, still today they say Qadisha ala Qadisha Hilfana. Can you believe that? In India, Malabar. And guess what happened? The priest told me in India we have a seminary in area there has 700 boys studying to become a priest. Picture that. For 3 million people, they have 700, but all of them, they know very well the old Aramaic, classical Aramaic, they study it, and they know the origin of religion. It was taken to them from by Chaldeans. Audisho of Nasibin, one of our patriarchs, 1318, listed about 20 Chaldean metropolitan sees with 200 bishops in the world. Can you picture that? By the end of the 10th century AD, there were 15 metropolitan churches in Mesopotamia only, and 5 beyond its border. 1340, other contacts were geographically closer. A group of the Church of East in Cyprus placed themselves under the Catholic Church. They were called Chaldeans. This union was successfully 1445. If you are following me, if you remember that we separated them from the Chaldean Church, from the Catholic Church, we spoke about that in the 5th century AD. But now some of those non-Catholic Chaldeans in Cyprus, they became Catholics. 1280, now imagine an amazing story you are going to hear. 1280, Marcos, a young monk with his friends, Uyghur monk Barsoma. These two guys came to Baghdad. Marcos was consecrated bishop, Chaldean bishop, and Barsoma nominated visitor. They were back home to start their mission. So they visited Baghdad and they went to China. In their way, they heard that Patriarch Dinha of Chaldeans died. So they came back to Baghdad because he's a bishop. He has to select the patriarch. And in surprise move, the Synod of Bishops elected the Chinese Marcos as the new patriarch. Can you picture this? Did you ever heard about this? A Chinese guy whom his ancestors became Christians, now he became a patriarch of the Chaldean church. Picture that. And his name was called Yawalaha III. Yawalaha III, 1280 AD. And now we have another good news, which is 1552 from Iraq. north of Mosul, Yohanan Sulaka, superior of the monastery of Rabban Hormuz, Derod Rabban Hormuz, as no bishop of metropolitan rank was available to consecrate him. There was no bishop around to make him a bishop. He went to Rome. And then in Rome, he professed his faith and he became Catholic. And therefore, in our church, that was 1552 AD. And from then, our church, the Eastern Church, divided into which are the Chaldean Catholic and the non-Catholic Eastern Church, our brothers, the non-Catholics. The number of the Chaldean north of Iraq dwindled from 1 million to about 150 between 1961 to 1995. December 2003, Emmanuel Deli was elected patriarch for the about 750,000 Chaldeans, Christian faithful worldwide. Chaldean in Iraq are the third larger group after the Arab and the Kurds. The Chaldean Church has 80 dioceses in Iraq today. In Baghdad, in Basra, Kirkuk, Mosul, Erbil, Zakho, Al-Khosh, and Amariyah. And out of Iraq, 2 in Iran, Tehran, and Urmia, 1 in Lebanon, 1 in Syria, 1 in Egypt, 1 in Turkey, and 2 in United States, Michigan, and California. And we have in Canada, and then in Australia. Seminarians, we have seminary moved to a building in Ankara. It was in Baghdad. And now, before the last point is the Chaldean and the world. Chaldeans are Catholics in union with Rome, but they are not Roman Catholics. They are one in faith with Rome, but different in customs. Here in San Diego, when you meet somebody and you tell him, I'm Catholic, he thinks immediately you are Roman. No, because Roman, it is something of liturgy, and we don't have Latin liturgy. We have our own liturgy. Therefore, I said, we are one in faith as a Catholic, but different in customs. For example, all the priests can get married, they don't, and we give confirmation as a priest, but they don't, and so on. So we have some traditions different. The liturgy is different, though they have the same sacraments and doctrine. So when you see any Catholic person here in San Diego and tell him, I'm Catholic, but be careful, I'm not Roman Catholic because of diversity of liturgy. The Chaldean patriarch is called the Patriarch of Babylon and resides in Baghdad. According to the 2008 census, there were 8 Chaldean archdioceses and 9 dioceses with 18 bishops. There are around 112 parishes and 10 missions. The Chaldean in the United States. The first pioneer of the Chaldean people arrived to the United States at the end of the Nineveh 19th century. They were few in number, but by the mid of 20th century, they were many spread all over the country. Today, we have 2 dioceses. One of them is Eparchy of St. Thomas. It was established in 1985 in Detroit. And we have in San Diego, Diocese of St. Peter. And on January 82, our parish become here in San Diego the seat of the bishop. On May 21st, 2002, St. Peter Catholic Church in El Cajon became the seat of the second Chaldean diocese in the United States called St. Peter. Now here we are, the Chaldean community of St. Peter. I have only 6 minutes, and I hope I can finish the most important notes about San Diego, because I lived all the events of what I'm going to talk to you about. The following are important historical stages of immigrants of Chaldeans, either from Detroit, Michigan, or direct from Mesopotamia, Iraq. A great majority of San Diego Chaldeans trace their roots to the province of Nineveh in northern of Mesopotamia, left their country searching for better life and hoping for a more peaceful. 1951, there was a known Chaldean immigrant. San Diego was Dr. Joseph Gibran, the first person. The second person was Ramsey Alex, 1954. He opened his own business here, Auto Use Part. 1955, Mr. and Mrs. Aziz Habib visited, and they established here first Chaldean to open grocery store. 1959, Mr. and Mr. Wadi Dadda moved to San Diego from Detroit. He taught political science in Southwestern College in Chula Vista, California. 1966, he was elected as an assemblyman to the state of California and served in that position for 16 years. 1982, he was elected state senator for San Diego 40th District. He was re-elected 1986 state. 1993, retired after 27 years legislating career. 1960, Sliwu Saman came. He found only 10 Chaldean family in San Diego. 1973, the first Chaldean Catholic parish was established, and Reverend Peter Katula became the first pastor. There were only 70 families. March 74, they bought the place where our church is now. 1974, the pastor and the parish council, they named our church St. Peter. May 2074, they bought the area around here, the church. And then we have June 20, 1974, I came from Rome. I found out only 130 family in San Diego. And then I left San Diego to Wisconsin. April 74, St. Peter Parish published first directory. They were only 150 family. 1977, 220 family. 1979, celebrated the groundbreak of new church. And here we are, 1981, two Chaldean sisters, daughter of Mary, Immaculate Conception, Baghdad, Iraq, came to visit us here. January 16, January 1982, His Holiness established Detroit, and St. Peter Parish was part of the Detroit Diocese until May 21, 2002, when St. Peter Chaldean Catholic Church became the seat of the Chaldean Diocese of St. Peter the Apostle. 2082, they were almost 19. The old priest house was constructed. St. Peter Church build was dedicated 1983. And here we are, 1985. I came to San Diego, and still I am here since then. April 86, Bishop Ibrahim granted me as a faculty of pastor with Bishop Katula. And here we are. I started all the activity Bible studies and catechism classes, choirs, and all that in San Diego. March 87, Reverend Katula passed away, and I was the only priest serving until 2002. Bishop 2002. Okay. 1998, Peter Didda was sworn in as the first Chaldean Superior Court judge in San Diego Court. on 2008, Peter Dedda was appointed a chief judge of the El Cajon Superior Court. And here we are. 2003, the new rectory of St. Peter was built. 2008, Mrs. Polly Heisha Shamoun, 42 years old, became the first female Chaldean judge in the state of California and was appointed to the San Diego County Superior Court. And here we are. Bishop Serhat Jammo, who was since 2002 bishop of our diocese. What happened was he resigned because from his pastoral care for the eparchy of St. Peter. Why? Because he came to the age of being retired. Bishop Shlemun Warduni came for a short time. Then May 14, 2017, July 7, Third Parish Church leader came to our church. And here we are. The third bishop is Mar Emmanuel Hanna Shalita as the new bishop of our eparchy. Now, the last 2 minutes for this subject. These days we have 12 parishes, 7 missions serving 50 Chaldeans in West USA. We have 3 of them in San Diego, and Marmette and Sears, and Mauna in Sacramento, St. Thomas in Turlock, and St. Paul in Los Angeles, Miriam Adra in Orange County, Georgis in Orange County, Miriam Adra in San Jose, Marora in Scottsdale, Santa Barbara in Las Vegas. And we have 7 missions. Last words. Although the Chaldeans are proud of their Middle Eastern culture and heritage, they are also grateful to their new country, America. The Chaldean liturgy language and classical Aramaic and tradition make St. Peter Church a natural center for community gathering. They meet every Sunday for religious service. They bring their Chaldean to learn Aramaic, Bible study, and so on. Both American-born Chaldean and those have immigrated from Mesopotamia have a common challenge to continue to find a new avenue through which they can help to keep Aramaic language in its Chaldean dialect and their tradition alive, and to build a better society and become a good citizen of United States of America. We have almost 40,000 Chaldeans in San Diego and almost 70,000 in all over the Chaldean diocese in the West. I am now at the end of my talk. Rana?
Thank you so much, Father Michael. We will now allow time for comments and questions from the participants. So if you'd like to unmute your mic one at a time, or do the raise hand feature, or post your comment in the chat, we will allow.
Where should I touch? Chat?
So I will be monitoring the chat, and you can as well, Abuna, as well as if any participants would like to unmute their mic to say any comments, or if they have any questions, they're more than able to right now with the space.
Go ahead.
I have.
Yes, go ahead, Nabil.
Say your name.
Yeah, I have 2 questions here. At the beginning, when the Jew is exiled to the Babylon, at that time, the prophet Daniel, they speak Chaldean, because at that time, all the Babylon, they speak Chaldean that time. And second question, when I study in the university and everywhere, about Syrian civilization. Is that similar to the Chaldean civilization?
Okay.
And we know that the Chaldean language, Syrian language is Semitic language as well as the Chaldean. But what are the difference between these two languages, Chaldean and Syrian language?
It was better to start with a question, then answer, then question. Let me explain. Let me explain to you. When the Jewish, they were exiled to Jerusalem, what was the question about? To Babylon.
In Babylon, the prophet Daniel in Babylon.
No, the prophet Daniel came at the end of the rules of Chaldeans. Like I said, around 535 or 40. And he spoke Chaldean.
Chaldean. That means
everybody spoke Chaldean. Everybody spoke Chaldean because how can he be counselor for the king of Babylon if he was not speaking Chaldean? He was a counselor.
That means in the Old Testament, all the prophets, they speak Chaldean? I didn't.
No. Only those whom they lived in Babylon. There are some of them, 3 of them. This is another study to learn. If you come to the Bible study, we are learning now about some of the prophets lived and prophesied in where? In Babylon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now let's come back to the second question. Second question is this. Semitic language are 5. Akkadian, we have, let's say, Aramaic, Hebrew, Arabic, and Ethiopian. These are 5 Semitic languages. Okay, what is the difference? In Aramaic, when we say in Aramaic got 3 dialect, lahja, 3 dialect. So if it is used by Chaldeans, same Aramaic, same prayer book is used by Chaldeans, by Assyrians, and by Syrians. Same writing. But the question is, if it is used by Chaldeans, we call it Chaldean. If it is used by Assyrian, it's called Assyrian. If it is used by Syrian, it's called Syrian. This is the situation. And when Pope visited Iraq, they mentioned in the radio there that Christians are 3 branches, and he mentioned 80% of Christians are Chaldeans, 10% are Syrians, and 5% are Assyrians.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question?
Yes, Abuna.
Aziz, go ahead.
Okay, Abuna, why Babylon, they name it as this name, like Babel?
Oh, the gate of God, Anu. The god Anu. The head of the gods, Anu. I had something here, but because of the timing, they gave me only 1 hour. I could not explain everything. So Bab-el, listen to this word. Bab-el, that means the gate of God, because they believed in many gods. By the way, if you want to read about Babel, read Genesis, the Bible, chapter 11, the Tower of Babel.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay. Rana, are we done?
I do have one participant that is raising their hand. I believe the name is Mundla.
Mutla, yes.
Mutla.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Mutla.
Good morning. Is there a relationship between the Chaldean church and the ancient people of Babylon?
What do you mean, Chaldean people of Babylon? They were Chaldeans. Babel, Hammurabi. Hammurabi, when he started Babel, he built up Babel. And from then, all the people living there were called Chaldeans. No other name.
Is there a relation?
Before that, they were Akkadians.
Okay.
Akkadian were in the middle. In the middle. Hilla, today in Iraq, Hilla,
No?
and Baghdad and all that, they were here all Akkadians. But
Okay.
from Babel and go south all the way since 1900 BC, we spoke in the Bible how Abraham was from Ur of Chaldeans. So we have Chaldeans there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is there any additional questions or comments? If you have any, you're more than welcome to post it in the chat or raise your hand. We'll just give one more minute.
I'm glad that everybody was listening and understanding. And like I said, I cut a lot of what I prepared because of timing. Otherwise, there is so much to talk. There are so many books about Chaldeans. Here we are. I have a book here. It says the beginning of the cradle of civilization, which is Iraq, and it started from Ur of Chaldea. Okay, Azizi.
All right, Abuna, I want to thank you once again for giving us time to have you during this workshop. And thank you to all the participants that gave us their time today. Thank you so much, Abuna. God bless
And
you.
thank you for being so helpful. God bless you.
You're very
I hope-
welcome.
I hope I will come back to Cuyamaca to teach person to person Aramaic. I hope so.
Inshallah, Abuna, we would love to have you continue, especially.
In fall, next fall.
All right, I will be.
By the way, just I
Mhm.
want you to tell people if there will be no Chaldean classes, Aramaic classes in Cuyamaca, I will be opening 2 months classes in my church hall every Tuesday from June 3rd, every Tuesday all the way to the end of July, from 5:30 to 7 o'clock, 1 hour and a half classes for Aramaic.
Okay,
How to read, how to write, and so on. Okay?
I'll notify the Dean of Arts and Humanities, and we thank you again for your 32 years of service, and we hope to continue your years of service at Cuyamaca College. We're very
Okay.
blessed.
Okay, dear. Bye now.
All right, thank you so much, Abuna.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.